give it a few. Good evening, everyone. My name is Grace Akpali. I am currently a medical student at Rush Medical College, and I'm one of I am one of the co-MAPS Diversity Research Liaisons. And we are here tonight because we're going to be going over our Research 101 series. Yes. And this is just the first part of a three-part series that we have this fall, just to help our SNMA MAPS members.
Yeah, it seems like there's a little bit of echo, but I think we're good to go.
Yes, but bear with us. I don't know if people want to enter in the chat where they're signing in from, and we will get started in probably 5 minutes. Okay, I'm just going to talk again. Am I echoing? Oh, hey. Okay, so everyone apparently on YouTube, Raina Williams signed in and said that everything sounds fine on their end. Okay, perfect. So that's great to hear. So I guess we'll just get started, and Manny and I will deal with our personal echoing. But again, if you guys want to just sign in where you're coming from, if you are an SNMA MAPS member, we just want to get an idea of where you are in your journey. If you're a first year student, if you're a post-bac, third, second year. Okay, so we have a few pre-meds. Some folks are in their gap year. Okay. Okay. Really? Well, I guess we can get started since it is 7:06 or 8:06 if you are on Eastern Standard Time. And then if we have anyone signing in from California, it might even be 5:06. So thank you guys for joining us this evening. Or if you're catching the recording. So just kind of a recap of our agenda for tonight. We're going to be going over our mission. We'll be going over our team introductions, so just kind of introducing ourselves to you guys again, covering different steps of how you can get involved in research, just sharing some tips, and then we'll have time at the end for a Q&A. So I just wanted to start us off with every SMA webinar. We always try to highlight, what is our vision? What is the reason for us coming together? And the SNMA, if you don't know, it stands for the Student National Medical Association. And we are committed to supporting current and future underrepresented minority medical students, addressing the needs of underserved communities, and increasing the number of clinically excellent, culturally competent, and socially conscious physicians. And we bolded again, supporting current and future underrepresented minority medical students because our event is a part of the SMA National MAPS Committee. And you guys truly are the future as well. So we serve both medical students and our pre-med medical student members through the MAPS program. And again, me and Manny are your diversity research liaisons for this year. Currently, I attend Rush Medical College. I went to University of Maryland, College Park, and graduated with a dual degree in biology and dance. I also took 3 gap years between undergrad and medical school. And now I'll pass it on to Manny so he can introduce himself.
Hey everyone. Everyone calls me Manny. Sorry for those technical issues early on. But my name is Osman Bilal, and I'm currently the MAPS Diversity Research Liaison. I'm also in my gap year. I'm doing research at the National Institutes of Health as a postbac IRTA. I graduated from University of Michigan Flint, and I'm currently applying to medical school. We can go to the next slide. So yeah, you're here most likely because you're interested in doing research and you want to find opportunities. So first I figured I'd just let people know about the benefits of research and why it's important for pre-meds. So research is really important because we are all pre-meds and we want to, get into medical school and become physicians that are, helping patients and things of that nature. And research is kind of like the first step of that, because in order to treat patients and follow kind of a standard of procedure, you have to create that standard of procedure. And the way they do that is through research. And it helps to develop critical thinking and problem skills by just going through that method and making sure that we know for a fact, by confounding variables and things of that nature, that a positive treatment for X condition is Y. And so it also enhances your understanding of the scientific method and helps you to kind of just get a grasp of medical literature and how researchers go about this process. Also, it's really important for medical school applications. And by having research on your application for medical school, it really shows that you're somebody that's intellectually curious and passionate about what they're doing. And another way of showing that is through your publications and presentations. So when and this is a way that actually the universities end up looking good, because most medical schools, they are funded by the NIH to do research, and they want medical students that are going to come in and are passionate about their specific areas of interest and are going to help to publish through the resources at those universities. And so that's something that is super important for pre-meds, and it's a way that you can highlight your own research and make the university look good.
Perfect. So you're probably wondering, where do you start? It's like, okay, how to get involved in research as a pre-med. And you're like, I've never done research before. I just arrived at university. If you are an undergrad, or maybe you didn't have the time, maybe you are a non-trad pre-medical student, and you're like, I joined this pre-med thing late in the game. Like, how do I get involved? There's folks who've been doing this since they were in high school. So the perfect place to kind of get started is really just reflecting. So I think the first question you have to ask yourself, do you have the time? And, I think we all are like very ambitious people as pre-meds or medical students where you probably love getting involved. You probably love helping people. But really, when it comes to research, like this is something that would be supplemental to your studies and that you can truly do at any point in time. Whereas some of your pre-med coursework, once you get that grade, it's very hard to change that. So you really want to ask yourself, do you have the time? Is this something that you can fit into your schedule while you're an undergrad? Or is this something that you probably want to do during, a summer research, or a summer break? Or maybe even perhaps like, if you are a later pre-med, or if you just don't have the time at all, during undergrad, it might be something you consider to do as like a post-bac enrichment. Once you kind of reflect on like how much time or availability, many labs might ask you to dedicate 6 to 8 hours of time during the week. Or if you're doing a summer intensive, it might be full time for like 6 or 8 or maybe even 12 weeks. So once you kind of allot how much time you have, you can kind of reflect on your interests. So whether or not you want to do maybe genetics, microbiology, neuroscience, and that can kind of help you narrow in your scope of what research opportunities you might want to apply to, or what skills you might need to work on, or courses you might need to take to embark on that research. And I think the final stage, again, just going into the skills, like what skills do you to gain, or what skills do you have? So reflecting on like, what are your talents currently? Like, what are your skill sets currently? Do you know a little bit of R? Are you more of a biostat person? Are you someone who, you've done a lot of like maybe Gen Chem lab courses and want to be involved in general chemistry related research, or maybe even biochem? Or perhaps like me, personally for me, I never did wet lab research in undergrad. I only did clinical research because I love talking to people. And I was like, oh, through clinical research, I can sign people up for studies and tell them how like we can learn from their experience. So maybe, you're looking for an opportunity that might be maybe more public health related. So there's public health research opportunities that could also be a benefit, I think, as a pre-med as well. So just doing that reflection on the skills that you have. And then if you are truly like a cold turkey newcomer, like definitely highlighting like what skills you might want to gain, or seeking out mentors who might be able or willing to have the time to train you to gain those skills.
Okay, great. So we figured out the benefits of research, why it's important for pre-meds, and now you did that self-reflection and you tried to find your niche, what specifically your interest, what kind of research you're interested in. Now it's about finding a lab and seeing the opportunities that are available that fit your niche. And so there's a couple ways you can do this. One of a big ways that you can do this is through networking. You can go through your pre-health office or your pre-med advisors and ask them about any opportunities they might know that are available on campus of professors that are doing research. And that is a good way because it can kind of streamline your application. And instead of like just blindly reaching out to people doing research, now you know of specific areas that already have openings. Another way is through student organizations like Pre-Med Club or your MAPS chapter, or peer mentors. Perhaps one of your friends was in a lab and he left after completing his research or doing a summer of research in a lab, and he thought it was a good experience. Now you know that there might be an opening there. Another way is through research fairs and networking events. These are oftentimes where principal investigators will come, maybe speak on their research and show you what they do, and they might have opportunities available. And so that is another way you can kind of have that face-to-face contact and get to know them and kind of express your interest as well and see if they align with that lab. Another way is through online resources. This includes like your university research websites, where they, like our university at University of Michigan Flint, whenever there's an opening available for a research assistant, they post it on that website. And that is a way you can kind of see about like what your university offers, or what like kind of institutions in your area offer for research opportunities. Another way is through the National MAPS Chapters listserv. There are constantly so many opportunities that are being sent through our emails. Through that listserv, you just look on there, and you can even kind of search for research, code search it, and there will be a lot of opportunities available. Research is something that like there is so much research going on, whether it's through institutions like the NIH or universities here in the US, that like there's always a need for people to go do research. It just takes kind of seeking them out and taking an initiative. The other way that you can kind of hear about research opportunities is through our SNMA social media. Make sure to follow on Instagram and stay tapped in with that. And lastly is like through cold emailing professors or principal investigators. And the way to do this is, if you're unable to kind of have that face-to-face contact, is to just read their work and know about the publications that they maybe have already done previously. And a lot of times principal investigators will put a summary of the work they're currently studying. That's a great way to kind of see if it fits your interests, and also just to know deeply about their work. So that way, when you cold email them, which is just basically like an initial email to a PI, where they have like no background, might not know you from class, and you just kind of introduce yourself. We'll get into like the details of it like later on, but here. So with the cold emailing, what's important is reading their publications. So that's the way you demonstrate passion, because there are so many pre-medical students that are looking for research, and it won't really speak depths about your interest if you just say, I'm interested in this area, kind of broad area of study. What really speaks depths and volumes is when you study their research and can ask specific questions. That really stands out to principal investigators. And this is work that they're really passionate about. They had dedicated oftentimes years to this area of work. So that's kind of how you stand out and really show that like you're interested in their work. And they'll be more than happy to elaborate. At the end of the day, like they know you're somebody that's looking to gain skills from that experience. So they don't expect you to know everything. But as long as you have a solid foundation by reading about their literature, then you can build upon that by asking them questions, which like I said, they will be more than happy to elaborate on. The other way is to try to connect in person. I highly recommend that for pre-med students. Like your biochemistry professors, biology professors, chemistry professors, a lot of them will be doing research as they had already have their PhDs, and they're interested in building upon that work that they've been doing for years. So a lot of times, like within the institution, they'll be doing research. So if you just talk to them after class, and kind of just build a relationship with them. That's one thing where it depends on what school you're at. For me, like at University of Michigan Flint, my class sizes were smaller. I previously attended a bigger institution at University of Miami where there was like 200 to 300 people in my intro level biology classes. So I would say definitely like just like building a relationship from the jump is so important, whether it's going to office hours, or scheduling one-on-ones with them so that you can ask them, even if it's just about coursework, because now when you come back and say, oh, I read about your research and I'm really interested, they already have that relationship and they recognize your face, and that will kind of go a long way. If you didn't connect in person and you met maybe a PI at one of these fairs or saw a posting online, it's super important to follow up with emails, because like after you learn about their work or meet with them after class and have conversations about their research and show your interest and desire to gain a research position, following up with that email will be that second kind of point of contact to like establish that relationship and show you're serious about pursuing a position. And so if all those methods didn't work out and you weren't able to meet with them in person, maybe they didn't know you from class, or there wasn't a research fair, maybe there's not a pre-med office at your university, then cold emailing is another technique. And that's like I previously mentioned briefly, where you send an initial email. They don't even know who you are. You introduce yourself and you talk about their research. You talk about your personal goals, because at the end of the day, this opportunity is for you and it's to build on your skills. So being clear about what you are passionate about, what you are truly passionate about, is important because that way you will find a lab that aligns with your goals. So cold emailing, if the face-to-face doesn't work out, that's another technique. And we have templates that Grace and I will go over later on.
So just taking it back to structured research training programs. So this can really be a good opportunity for students who are probably identifying that maybe you don't have enough time to like incorporate doing research during the school year. With these opportunities, one of like the biggest perks is that you're paired with like an experienced mentor or a very well-known and productive lab. And usually they're very intensive training programs where you're expected to be working full time, maybe a little bit more than that per week, for about maybe 6 to 12 weeks if it's a summer research program. For post-bac research opportunities, some PIs have you commit for at least 2 years, just because it takes time for you to learn all of the techniques and routines that they do in their group. But there are also 1-year programs as well for research. And then if you are interested in, looking into structured research training programs, some, funded research opportunities, key terms that you can use for your own independent search after the call, definitely for summer undergraduate pre-meds, looking at perhaps the NIH summer internship program, SURF programs. There are summer university research funded opportunities that are, connected usually with perhaps top 20 undergraduate institutions. So if you're at a smaller, let's say, liberal arts school, and you want to get the experience of doing like a large institution, looking into some of the summer research SURF programs might be a really good opportunity for you. And then there's also SMART programs, which are basically summer medical research training programs. And those are usually partnered with medical schools. So that's another really great opportunity for you to network with medical school here, in medical school, as well as gain research experience and training from experts if you haven't had that opportunity yet or weren't able to do something like that during the school year. For post-bac pre-meds as well, we have both undergraduate and post-bac pre-meds within the MAPS organization or sector of our organization. There is the NIH ERTA program, which is really popular. I'm a former ERTA. Manny is a current ERTA. And there's a lot of ERTA alumni within the SNMA network. There's also PrEP programs, which are post-baccalaureate research enrichment programs. And very similar to kind of SMART, they're PrEP programs at like medical schools. So one of the ones that come to mind, just because we might have a panelist from that who did that program, is the Mayo PrEP program, but there's several institutions that have post-baccalaureate research opportunities as well for students who are looking for a structured research training experience that might not have that much. And then just to kind of give our little quick summary, because I know we went through a lot of information thus far, but kind of the strategies that were helpful for us as pre-med. So for me, I was very much like utilizing my summer breaks for doing research. I was a dual degree student, so I had biology and dance classes. I was like dancing like 20 to 24 hours a week with that degree program. And then I was like, why not do a medical Spanish minor on top of all of that? So I found it very difficult, like as far as my self-reflection, I was just like, I knew that I wouldn't be able to do within the semester like commitment to research. So the summer after my second year, I did research at a local medical school that was like about an hour away from me. And then I also did research at NIH, which was my first entryway to the Pathways program after my third year. And going into kind of how some of the tips that we talked about, I actually found out about the NIH summer internship program through going to an intern for a day fair. So definitely going to your career center or, different networking opportunities can be helpful. You never know, like down the line for additional opportunities. The second really big tip that I would give, like if you don't have time to, kind of fit it in to your extracurricular activities, you could always, possibly do a capstone or thesis for credit for your degree. So at UMD, I was a part of the College Park Scholars program, and specifically I was in the science and technology track. So that was definitely an opportunity that I was able to get towards my College Park Scholarly citation, also get some experience with some wet lab research and like the CRISPR-Cas9 technique, which was like the rave in 2016 when I did that project. And then the third really big tip that I would give, and I continue to emphasize time and time again, but if you are overwhelmed with school or if you are a late pre-med and your grades are looking relatively decent, you might want to consider a research intensive postbac. Often those programs are paid. So on the previous slide, we talked about the prep programs. Personally for me, I did the NIAID ERDA program from 2019 to 2022. And that's one of my that was my last in-person poster presentation the Friday before the pandemic and the shutdown. So I have a lot of interesting memories and love that experience there. And really got connected with a lot of my current friends at SNMA during my time at NIH, as well as at UMD as an undergrad. So I'll let Manny share some of his key tips and lessons.
Yeah, so one tip I had, actually, this phrase here, the loudmouth gets fed, was actually my PI when I had got accepted for the position at the NIH. Is one of the first things he said. It was actually in regards to completing training. So he was saying, like, if you need your computer fixed or you need the software attached to your laptop, make sure you're loud and you speak up and let IT and different entities that you need to let know, speak up. But I actually like this quote now for research as well, because I think it's really important to speak up. And that's like in terms of your interests, in terms of your goals, to just be intentional about what you want out of your experience. Because you can go into a lab just to kind of, like, I think as pre-med, sometimes like you have your pre-med advisors and they tell you what classes to take from here on out till you graduate, and you're kind of just like going through the motions sometimes, that you forget that you actually can be intentional about your experience. And sometimes we get in the habit of just like checking boxes, but ultimately, like, these skill sets you will take with you to medical school, and research is something that you can continue for medical school and throughout. So just if you know from the beginning that you're more interested in basic science research and want those wet lab skills and want to see how we take how we start studies off with animal studies, you can have the opportunity to do that if you are vocal about that. And the other case is also true. If you want more of a clinical experience and want to see directly how interactions with patients and have that kind of clinical aspect to your research, then be vocal about that too. Because ultimately, it's about finding an experience that aligns with your personal goals. And the way to really just make sure that happens is by being upfront with the PI, So when you meet with the PI, and this kind of goes into the second point to show your curiosity and interest, is make sure you do your homework, like know the lab and the kind of roles and responsibilities of research assistants in the lab. And the way you do that is by talking to other team members. If you know another team member is already doing research in this lab, you can kind of get a glance at what the day-to-day is like. And then when you further, like, your understanding of that role by talking to the principal investigator, that is an opportunity for you to show your curiosity and interest in his work by showing that you had read up on the topic and, are curious. By the way you show your curiosity is by asking questions, because there might be details you don't understand of the study. They have been doing this for years. That's where you can kind of fill in those knowledge gaps and see if this is something you are truly interested in. And lastly, like, in that meeting, just be upfront about like kind of what opportunities in the lab you will have. Will you have access to the data? Will you have an opportunity to do personal projects? And just kind of getting an idea of what the expectations of the lab are. And then lastly, this builds up on it as well, as just like you are in the driver's seat. And in order to be in that driver's seat, it's important to apply early, kind of just like being aware of the deadlines and applying well before them, because these positions fill up quick. There are so many pre-med students across the United States, and everyone is trying to get a research position. So just apply early so that you can land a position that you are truly passionate about and interested in, and really find a lab that kind of facilitates that mentor-mentee relationship. Is somebody that you feel like is going to take you under your wing and just really teach you about the process of research. So yeah, that just finishes off with like kind of just setting your goals and really assessing, like, does this lab really fit with like my interests and my goals? And if it doesn't, it's okay. If you find out that like after you have already started a lab that you're kind of maybe doing administrative tasks or things that not really pertain to research, or because even the administrative tracks truly at the end of the day do pertain to research. It's kind of the nitty gritty aspect of research. However, if you feel like that you're not gaining enough skills in the area that you were intentional and really were seeking to get out of the experience, then switching labs is an option. And that's something you can do. I personally started off at the NIH. I was initially doing COVID research on the long-term symptoms of COVID and how they affect neurological function. But after a while in the lab, I felt like I wasn't really getting like enough skills in terms of how to craft an abstract, like starting my own projects. I was kind of left to just, it became a routine of a little bit more administrative work. So I did end up switching labs. And this time I was very upfront from the beginning about what I wanted out of the experience, and was thankfully able to find a great position now currently doing opiate use disorder research and looking at the neural mechanisms of addiction. And I'm able to write abstracts and look at the data. I have access to the data now, and I'm able to kind of look at it and see what kind of questions I want to ask. And the lab is like more supportive of my personal interests and goals out of the data, which is, I'm thankful for. But yeah, all that to say, just, be upfront and really do that self-reflection that Grace had mentioned earlier to find out what you're interested in and what your goals are in seeking this position in the first place. You can do next slide. Oh, I can switch it. Okay, good.
Perfect. Just tailoring your CV, resume, and your interests. So something I want to really emphasize is that if you have no lab, no research experience, that's completely not a problem. If you're in that situation as a pre-med, early in your stages of trying to get involved in research, it's really important to highlight the coursework that you've completed, as well as your academic and performance, like in your CV and your interest email. So highlighting, if you took a course with that professor, or if you took a course, in microbiology and you're hoping to work with this microbiome lab, or if you learned a lab technique, in one of your lab courses that you've been refining for like the last, 2 semesters, like that might be something that you can highlight. Also, any coursework or, stats courses, maybe any art course that you might have taken, definitely highlight that in your CV and your interest emails. And then also make sure, I would say, if you're in this situation and you're kind of praying for someone to give you a shot or an opportunity, like really make sure that you tailor your cover letter and you explicitly state like what are your interests and your goals, and how you would be like an addition to their team. And then the other really big point, I think, with, kind of just CV, just all the application materials that you might need, depending on the research opportunity you find, and that is a good fit for your schedule or your timing, is drafting, the targeted CVs to the PI. So really making sure that you're relating how your experience relates to their research, or how your interest relates to the lab's, interest. Also, just make sure, like a little tidbit, when you're doing these tailored, CVs or resumes for certain programs, I always like to save. I never like to use a template file and just edit that. I always like to save the CV or the resume that I'm working on as like a poly CV for blah, 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 blah. So just, put your last name or, the name of the opportunity, so that it is personalized, and get an external hard drive. I think one of the great things I always talk about as a medical student is like earlier, when we were looking for templates and stuff, I have a file in my hard drive of, all the CVs and just like the progression that I've had, where I didn't really have that much experience when I was kind of getting ready to like dedicate to the pre-med process and at the end of my second year. So it's definitely one of those things I think can help you stand out, where you're like, oh, wow, this person didn't just send me their generic CV. Like they actually directed it to me. They saved the file under my name. Like, so I think that definitely is one of those like quality over quantity things. I was also chatting with Manny earlier, but there's some research programs that often like people may submit like their CV or send an interest email to like over 90 investigators. And for me, with my post-bac program that I did at NIH, I only emailed 10 investigators, and I was able to interview of the 10 investigators that I emailed. So I really would emphasize quality or quantity. Definitely, if you're not hearing anything, maybe review the templates, which brings us to the third point. It's really important, like you pay so much money to your undergraduate institution, to go to the Career Center, the Writing Center, and take use of like the free templates that they have there. My undergraduate institution had a scholarship office. So if you're applying for any national scholarship or any national research program, they would have templates in the office of students who successfully applied, like just to look at their application. And they also send reminder emails, as well as just, offer multiple reviews of your application materials. So I think it's really important, you pay so much money. There's English majors who work in the writing centers that are more than happy to kind of, edit for grammar, and really is a free resource that you probably have at your institution that you can utilize. And then again, that last bullet point under that, connecting with former students who were successful, I think is really key. Near peer mentors, like sometimes people don't take full advantage of that. But yeah, definitely try to reach out to folks who may have had the experience that you want to have recently, or former, student who served as undergraduate research assistants or post-bac research assistants. Always try to get the perspective of folks who were in that role before. And then kind of as a last resort, there's a lot of like chat, GPT, AI building resume and CV resources. And I think those can be very helpful as far as like, finding, rewording, or like incorporating like certain key terms. If there's like a research listing you want to like maybe try to tailor your language to, but just make sure that like you get a human reviewer, like you review it. And like, again, going back to option 3, like they're often, if you look for it, is probably like some type of free research assistance, free help office, or career center where you can get writing support and services. You're on mute, Manny. Sorry.
Thanks so much. Sorry about that, guys. So you tailored your CV and you got your resources and the things that you need to send to the principal investigator ready. And so now you're ready to deliver that initial email to the principal investigator whose work you're interested in. So kind of just like generally, there's a couple different routes of going about this. Since it's a cold email, for me, what I thought was really important was to introduce yourself properly and to talk about your goals and plans within the lab and also outside. So initially, like after this, good afternoon, Dr. XYZ. Hope you and your loved ones are doing well. You introduce yourself initially. This is just an example template of what I personally use. You introduce yourself, explain what your background is. For me, I had a bachelor's in science and health sciences and a psychology minor, and why I was writing to this principal investigator, which was to say that I had applied to the ERDA program and was inquiring to see if there were any positions available in the lab. Next, I talked about what his specific or her specific work revolved around and what I specifically was interested in their work. So in this email, template, I just said that as I was reading about your lab on the NIH website, I became interested in your work on, and this person did hematopoiesis and bone marrow failure research. And so I just talked about what his area of research was in and what specifically I was interested in. And I said that it would be an honor to work under your wing in studying on a molecular level the function of certain proteins and blood diseases. And then next paragraph was about what you will bring to the table in their lab. So this is where I talked about my background in coursework. I included the courses that I thought were relevant to the work in the lab. This was like microbiology, genetics, and biochemistry. And then I talked about also like maybe some intangibles, just like that you were passionate about the work. You can include things like that, or also just like some physical skills that you have, whether it's like statistical analysis, or maybe you come with previous wet lab experience in your undergraduate institution. And then lastly, how you will benefit from the experience. So like, why do you want to join the lab in the first place? Besides like the research area focus, but also just like kind of what the lab will offer you. So I mentioned that the lab will offer shadowing and just an opportunity to learn from physician scientists who had been doing work for years in their field. So I mentioned that in that next paragraph. And then lastly, just to include your contact information, your email, how they can reach out to you, because you want to be comprehensive. This is like the first email. Not to make, you don't want to make it too long though, because these physician scientists are oftentimes very busy. And so something that kind of just like they can briefly see like, okay, this is what this person's background is. This is what skills they can bring to the table. This is what they're interested in. Also, if you plan to attend medical school, definitely mention that. I put that in my introduction because that way the principal investigator can know if your timeline aligns with their research position that they might have available. If you're going to be attending medical school, as you already applied in the next year, then they might not fit or might fit, but sometimes principal investigators look for a little bit long commitment. And then lastly, like I said, just to put the contact information and then additionally your attachments. So you want to make sure here you include your cover letter, which will include an in more depth background of your interests in research specifically. So that way you can show them that my research interests align with your lab, and I think that this will be beneficial for me in my future as a physician studying XYZ. And then in that, make sure to also include your CV and your transcript so they can see your background and kind of make a decision, because they a lot of times will be having a lot of pre-med students that are applying for their research positions, and they want to make sure that they can, easily decipher who is a better fit for their lab.
Perfect. And then I have an email template that I also utilize. I on the side of sending like a short email where you kind of get straight to the point, because you're already going to have that tailored CV and that resume. So it's just kind of two examples of different ways that you can reach out or send an interest email. So I would just say good morning. Use their professional title to address them. Express your interest. So obviously say who you are, what school or program you are in, or maybe you're applying for something internally at your institution. So say you're a second year at University of Maryland. It's really important for you to just hit them straight with the point what you're looking for. Like, are you looking to be a research assistant? Are you looking to gain XYZ experience doing this? And how much time you have. So I have I was looking for one, possibly 2-year, but ended up in a 2-year position, which I love. It's very hard to get into an NIH for a 1-year position. Many of them want me to stay on for a little bit longer, and I actually stayed with my group for 3 years due to some pandemic delays. But anywho, so definitely specify how long or how much time you have available, and like be very straightforward with that. And then, also leave open the opportunity. Like, so maybe that investigator may not have an opportunity, but if a postdoc in their lab, or perhaps maybe one of their colleagues that they know that does similar work would be interested in taking a student. And then just going into how, you have an interest in what that group is doing, and specifically why you're interested in the work that they're doing, or if there's a technique. So, I mentioned that technique there. And then just brief overcap. Again, talked about how I had my cover letter and my resume attached. If they would like to review in more detail, my research interests, career goals, and qualifications. And then the other really big thing, even if they tell you no, just say thank you for giving you that opportunity or for reviewing. I remember there was like one investigator who was like, they don't have the time to take a student for a short period of time, but they were more than happy to like chat with me for an hour about like my professional goals. And now I 2 years after I reached out to that investigator, like the opportunity to work with them on a different project came up. So definitely follow up, even if you do get a no, just to see like if they are open, maybe in having you shadow or connect you with another colleague.
Okay, so now hopefully you've landed the research position, and this is kind of just like a brief touch on like how to make the most of your research experience once you do find that fit in the lab. And I just want to go back to taking initiative. I think it's super important because if you take initiative, a lot of times postdocs or other people in the lab that might be specializing in specific areas of the lab, they can like really just help you and like teach you techniques that you might have, not initially came to the lab pursuing. An example of this is like working with a staff statistician in my lab currently at the NIH, and we're doing opioid use disorder. Like our role kind of involves just like administering questionnaires and things like that. But after like I had seen like this device on the table that was like called Sleep Profiler, I just like asked them about it, and he showed me how the entire Sleep Profiler works, how it tracks your sleep and the different phases and the percentages of each phase that you spend in sleep. And I was able to like look at that data, and he showed me how it also tracks your heart rate and your respiration. And from that, actually, like one of the other postbacks in our lab got interested, and she ended up leading a study that I'm partnering on with her. And that is something that just like wouldn't happen like in terms of our roles and responsibilities. It was completely outside of our role and responsibility, but just from curiosity and kind of taking initiative and asking questions, because the other team members, whether they're postdocs or also whether it's your PI who's also might be in the lab and have more direct involvement, they have been doing this work a lot of time for many years, and they're like so happy to just share their experiences and teach trainees the techniques that they have learned. And so a lot of times it might lead to, publications or presentations and things like that. The other thing is to find your niche within personal projects, kind of piggybacks off that. Just like if you find out that a specific area of your lab, like you have more interest in, you can dedicate more time to that area. And this goes to the third point, which is about lab relations. And I think that's why it's super important to have an open dialogue with your PI, kind of just checking in. For me, it was once every week on Thursdays, I meet with my PI, and it's just a dedicated time to talk about anything. Like it could be lab related or not, but oftentimes during that meeting, I'll just talk about my experiences dealing with the participants and some of the questionnaires. Oftentimes, maybe I might have questions about how the questionnaires are worded, and thinking that it might be biased in some sense, might lead somebody to answer this or that. So like that's an opportunity for me to just like have those conversations, and that builds upon your training experience. But if you have a particular area that you want to focus on, I would just say take initiative and speak up and let your PI know, because a lot of times they might be more than happy to allow you to dedicate more time to that area of focus and carrying out your own personal projects. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, it's going to make their lab look good. You have opportunity to focus on a specific area and maybe pump out a publication from that. And then they can have other lab members compensate and maybe take over different tasks that might be required for the lab to function as a whole. And so I think those one-on-one meetings are super important. Another important thing that might help you maximize your opportunity in your lab is by like being involved in the journal clubs. A lot of labs have journal clubs. For me, it's like on Fridays, once a week, and they a lot of times will bring speakers from outside that might be doing work also related to addiction to just come in and collaborate and discuss their findings. But you yourself also have an opportunity to use that journal club meeting to present your work, and it could be your own work that you might have been dedicating a few months to, or it can be just an article that you're interested in and you might want to bring it up to the lab because you think it might, pertain to the study that you are doing or lead to a future product that the lab can, start a clinical trial on. And so just like really like utilize your resources. That's kind of like the main message here is the experience is what you make it. And, you can really gain the most out of it just by putting your best foot forward and being intentional about your goals and what you want out of the lab, and just speaking up and talking to different people in the lab about how they can help you, gain those skills and facilitate your experience. Lastly, just present your work. Ask about opportunities to attend conferences or seminars where you can be funded to go to these places to talk about your work and give presentations and do your poster presentations, which will be great for you in the long run. As Grace, I'm sure, is doing in medical school, you will take these skills with you to MD programs and beyond, and it'll help you tremendously in your career. So that's kind of like the main message. I just lastly wanted to share that like me speaking up actually about an opportunity with one of my mentors led to a whole project. Like that's why I'm a big advocate for that. I actually was just he was just a mentor for me. I didn't know it was going to lead to a research opportunity, but it was during my undergrad, and I had just told him I was interested in research, and he, gave me an opportunity to replicate a study that he had done in Ann Arbor in Flint. And so I'm a big advocate of just speaking up and really letting people know what you're interested in, because these are your mentors, and so that's what it's about. It's just kind of, they want to lift as they climb and help you along your career. So
yeah, and that brings us to the end of our presentation. Thank you guys so much for listening to us. We want to give a special thank you to the following people who really helped put this event together behind the scenes. Niad, our SNMA pre-medical board member, Ariana Dockett, who is our SMA MAPS VP of Programmatic Affairs, specifically initiatives, and as well as the SMA External Affairs teams and DRC team. All the beautiful visuals that you see on the SMA pages come from the external affairs, as well as just hosting this StreamYard platform. If you can, please remember to fill out the survey. We are actually doing raffles for our feedback on our webinars this year, so you might be able to win a prize if you end up filling out that survey and you're drawn. We also want to draw attention to some of our upcoming URL events, which is the Diversity Research Liaison events resources. So on December 9th, we plan to have a summer research panel. So now that you guys kind of know about different opportunities and routes to get involved in research, we'll be having that event on December 9th, and we'll also be updating and providing a summer research opportunity list. So stay tuned for that. And then December 17th, we'll be having a post-bac research panel. So for students outside of me and Manny that have participated in post-bac research, just for you guys to be able to ask some questions and pick their brain about their routes, because everyone's route and experience towards getting, into some of these opportunities are a little bit different. And then on December 20th, that is our goal currently, tentatively, to launch the MAPS Journal Club application for the spring 2025. So if you are an undergraduate student who's interested in research, but maybe don't have a lab currently, or maybe you just joined a lab and want to get a little bit more of experience and comfort presenting in a low-stress environment, having a journal club that meets monthly in the spring, and it's open to SMA MAPS dues paying members. So another reason for you to sign up for membership, so you can be a part of the MAPS Journal Club, as well as get a discount for SNMA family reunion in the spring as well. With that, we want to open it up to you guys if you have any questions for us, if you would like to answer before we end this session. More information about the Journal Club. So yes, we're going to be launching the application. It will be open on December 20th, and then it will close at the end of January for the months of January through April. So we'll be providing more details about that, as well as advertisements on our social media page. So make sure to follow the National MAPS SMA page, as well as the SMA National IG pages and Facebook as well. Great question. Excited to hear that you're interested.
Yeah, we're super excited about that journal club. Like, please, submit those applications, because it'll be super helpful.
And where are you signing in from? I think we had some people join in a little bit later, but. But yeah, if there's any other questions, feel free to reach out to us. We have our mapsdiversitysma.org email, and we also provided our institutional emails if you have more direct questions. But with that, I think we can end will there be webinars? Yes, so there will be a webinar for MD-PhD. Currently, that is scheduled for January. So we'll be having a panel. We'll be having a few panelists for that as well. But yeah, stay tuned. Definitely sign up for the SMA newsletter. You'll get that again if you are a dues paying member. You will get access to the national listserv with that opportunity.
Yeah, and if you're not a dues paying member,
and that MD PhD webinar will be open to everyone. It will be on StreamYard. The Journal Club events will be private on our Teams, and it's only going to be open to SNMA Max dues paying member for the spring, and we'll see if we can open up to external members outside of that.
Great. Yeah. Okay. I was just going to say,
5 more minutes technically, but if there's any other questions. Okay. I was like, now you guys come in at the last minute with questions.
Sounds cool. And I've been interested in research and trying to obtain opportunities. Are there ways that you can find more flexibility in being in a lab with a hectic schedule? That's a great question. Actually, one of my friends actually was doing research also through the ERTA program at the NIH and was able to get, to do work fully remote. So he oftentimes wasn't even in the DMV area, was able to do work from his home. And so that is something that I would say discuss with the PI, just like be like upfront about your schedule. I also know other postbacks actually like that have schedules where they're remote most of the week and then have like maybe 1 or 2 days that are in person. So just being like upfront about what you're able to make work with your schedule and what the rules and responsibilities of the lab. That way you can kind of see if it fits and meet in the middle. But yeah, just you can completely be upfront about that with your PI and they can like let you know if they're able to facilitate that. A lot of times they won't even like hesitate to make that happen because with a friend that I was discussing about, he actually was in person fully before he went remote, but he had just like discussed like, hey, is there an opportunity to maybe do this remotely? I know most of the work I'm doing is like data-based and it doesn't require patient interaction. So he didn't feel like there was kind of anything that was like requiring him to be on campus. So he brought it up and they were like super receptive and understanding. So as long as they know that you're really interested and can carry out your task, if it's feasible, a lot of times those PIs will help you to be flexible with your schedule. Mm-hmm. From Dallas, Texas. Great. Yeah, but great questions.
Oh, thank you, Destiny, for showing up. And yeah, we have technically 3 more minutes. I don't know if you guys have any other questions, but it definitely.
I guess until a question comes in, I'll just say I'm a big, really excited about the Journal Club. So if you're an SNMA member, please apply because even if you maybe didn't get research yet, this is going to be a great opportunity for you to like read a lot of articles and understand how other people do presentations. So it's a super good skill and it'll help you when you get to the point where you want to do research to do literature reviews to just make it a lot easier for you to be able to understand like kind of how to grasp the most out of like a research article. So Grace and I are super excited for that one. Nice.
Yeah, we are really excited for the Journal Club initiative as well. So I think it's going to be a really great, Manny and I, our goal as Diversity Research Liaisons this year is really just to, highlight different opportunities for pre-meds to get involved in research, as well as for you guys to have, technical experiences where you can improve your research skills. So the Journal Club will be a way for you, in a low stress environment to improve your research presentation skills, as well as just kind of hear about the work that some of our SMA members are doing. So yeah, it's also a great networking opportunity. We're down to our last 30 seconds. I think if there are no questions, we're going to let you guys go for the night. But thank you so much for listening to us. Please stay tuned for our next event on December 9th, as well as the Journal Club applications next month. Have a good one.
Feel free to reach out to us through email. Grace and I have put our emails there for you. If you have any further questions or anything, just don't hesitate to reach out.